welcome to Made in Atlanta. I am Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger. Made in Atlanta is a special series of podcasts in conjunction with SmallBizClub to focus on small businesses and how they take their business to market and some of the things that they've learned along the way. I am excited to be joined by Phillip Cooper, also known as Coop. He is with Cellared Roots Hospitality, which owns a set of restaurants here, specifically in the area of kind of Roswell and Alpharetta. Happened to live in Roswell, and he happens to own one of my favorite restaurants. So a little bit, I'm like, yay, we get to talk about food and restaurants.
There you go.
So tell me a little bit about Cellared Roots Hospitality and kind of the types of restaurants you own and that type of thing.
So Cellared Roots kind of came on a little bit after the fact. My Vin 25 we opened in 2012.
So it's been around that long.
Yeah,
wow.
That's a long time in restaurant years. For
yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
So I started as a long story bearable. I started as a valet back in the late '90s, working for Ray Schoenbaum with Ray's Restaurants, and then I became a server, or actually a busboy, then a server, and then a bartender, and got into management. Left for a short time, came back. And then got into the wine part of it. Ended up getting my sommelier certification, 16, 17 years ago. And then shortly thereafter, for whatever reason, decided to do it on my own.
And you don't know the reason? You just you rounded too long?
Yeah, it was sort of, I've been in the business long enough to be okay. I'm either gonna do this and make an absolute career out of it and go all in, or I'm going to do something else. So my business partner in the restaurants, a guy named Mark Johnson, he and I have known each other for ages, and he just kind of pitched to me one day, hey, you're pretty good at this. If you ever want to do it on your own, let me know. And I kind of took that and ran with it, started kind of designing it in my head, and marinated over it for a year or so, and we looked for spaces, and we found the Vin 25 spot, which is it's an old house built in 1941. With that type of real estate, there's lots of challenges with that, I can tell you, especially given the other restaurants are new construction, but trying to keep the old building from falling down, and all the, it's converted from a house that was hand built. So there's all sorts of challenges there.
Was it a restaurant space when you found it, or was it a house that they were like, hey, this would be a great idea as a restaurant?
It was not quite as sophisticated as we made it. It's 1,100 square feet, all in.
With a lot of outdoor space.
Yes, exactly. We have more outdoor seating than indoor. So we converted, put in an expo window, and kind of opened the floor plan a little bit. But it was always meant to kind of be a Normandy cabin, or some cottage you find in France. Lots of personality. We've got pecan trees on the property, which are kind of a pain depending on the season.
Right.
But yeah, so we started there, and I was there 8 days a week for the first 5 or 6 years, and then it just kind of grew from there. Was approached by a developer to do another Vin 25 in the property that we're at now, in City Center in Alpharetta.
Okay. Yeah.
And I really had no interest in trying to replicate Vin 25 again. That was sort of was what it was, lightning in a bottle. Kind of keep that for what it was. 25 is the street address, so that's where the name comes from.
Oh,
it's a wine bar.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I thought it had, because it's got the wine connotation, so I've always sort of thought maybe it was like 25 different wines.
Kind of was.
Yeah.
There was a segue there. There was a we just tried to 25 is the street address, 25 wines by the glass. That was the initial pull, but after that it just kind of took off. And at the time, Canton Street had already kind of been popping for 4 years probably or so at that point, but the growth hadn't happened that far north on Canton Street. So
and you're kind of down this nice little side street.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And that was a detractor. Everybody that I talked to was like, you sure you want to do this? All the actions 5 blocks the other way.
Yeah.
But it always kind of felt to me like it was, a destination, and we wanted to kind of create something special and have that, the outdoor environment you mentioned, and just sort of this kind of open air and live music and a place to come and hang out. Elevated food, elevated service, but still be relaxed enough where you could, you could feel comfortable and not feel too stuffed up about it.
Yeah, and so then but you decided not to replicate that concept.
We did, yeah. So we kind of looked at the lay of the land for City Center. It had not been built yet, so
which is so funny because people think that's been there, and it's all of that is so new.
Yeah, the only original piece on that property is a restaurant that was by us, Holmes. I think they're out of business now, but that was the original house there, the Jones House. But everything else was completely leveled, including City Hall, which they replicated City Hall, and now there's a new restaurant, Standard Pizzas, in there now, which is on the corner. And then they built City Hall, this kind of big, immaculate building, kind of the centerpiece of all of it, and then put the town green there, and then all these little outcrops around, and now there's condos and apartments and retail and a bunch of restaurants. So but we looked, I can remember being with the developer out on the balcony of City Hall and looking out over the space and looking at the plans and seeing this, there's a big oak tree. I guess I got something with trees and
yeah.
Whatnot, but.
At least it's not a pecan tree, right?
Oh, yes. I mean, yes, it has its challenges, whatever, but
right,
but it's nice, the ambiance, and it's 200 years old.
Yeah.
It's got personality. So hey, how about that space? And kind of went from there. My wife Sarah, she designs all of our spaces. So
okay.
We had the footprint of the building, but everything else we just kind of took it and made it our own.
So restaurant space, and I shared with you right before we started this that restaurants have always been this thing that I thought or wanted to do. I've been a serial entrepreneur. I've done lots of businesses, but I do think my wife would divorce me if I, came in and said, we're really going to do a restaurant.
Probably.
Because restaurants are tough. They're tough, right? So, we're specifically, I think it'd be interesting. I do want to talk about the marketing aspect of it, but as you kind of got into it and the things that you look like, is there a part of it that's easy, or is it all tough? And what's harder? Like, where do you think about it?
It's all tough.
It's all tough.
But I will say, I don't know how to do anything else. So we're gonna keep this rolling. But for me, I was a wine guy. Like I said, I was into the wine on the sommelier side, food service side, front of house side, and so it was always about hospitality, customer service, being able to kind of just on the grassroots point of sale, customer interaction for me. And then once you obviously get on the business side of it, as an owner, then you start to kind of obviously start to pay attention to all the little details, devils in the details, as they say, of how much does this cost, and fine tuning everything. You have to have the appearance of the most generous guy in the room. But the reality is you're counting pennies everywhere. Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's been challenging. But most businesses are challenging, especially on the ownership side of things. I'm never really off, even if I'm not there. But I find the most kind of peace in the whole thing is during service hours, actually doing it. High pressure situation, things are moving a million miles a minute. That's when I kind of hit my comfort zone. But
it's funny because I think that's a trait of entrepreneurs, because I'm the same. I think I should have been an ER doctor.
Right.
I love the stuff coming in.
Yeah.
We use Slack here, and I'm probably the one in the company that loves it.
Sure.
It's stuff's coming in, and I'm taking care of it, and whatever.
Right.
That all kind of in the moment work that you have to do to make it all happen. Yeah.
It's so necessary, and we're in this service business, but we've always tried to lead my people with again that mindset of hospitality, of we're going to welcome you into our home.
Yeah.
How I would treat a guest in my home is how I want you to be treated. And it's not just food. Obviously, our food menus are excellent. Chef Sean's he's VP of Ops for Cellared Roots Hospitality, corporate chef. So he does all of our food back of house, and he's got a world of experience in both front and back. Has helped me tremendously with building culture and building the brands and making them what they are. But it's not just food, it's not just wine, it's ambiance, it's lighting, it's music, it's
So, but is it the perfection of all those things? Because in the area you're in, there's one house there that they have had real problems keeping a restaurant, right? And what is there something, because we're talking about marketing and all of it's kind of tied into the customer experience, those types of things, but getting people to show up at the beginning, or is there anything you did to trick them to get them there? Did people show up because of word of mouth?
No, I think the easiest thing to do is to get people there the first time. Yeah. Because it's kind of the buzz around town. Oh, there's a new restaurant. Let's go check them out. Yeah. So, in my opinion, it's more difficult to get them to keep coming back on a regular basis.
Right. Okay. So you think the novelty, which I'm totally that, and we're so spoiled in that area. There's so many new things and choices, but so getting them there novelty wise, that's good. But then it's making sure that you're going to get them back.
Yes. And, we've always really, my strategy with locations and where we build our spots, we typically look for critical mass. Obviously, historic Roswell and downtown Alpharetta, they're both very similar in that respect. A lot of walkability, a lot of locals. Locals pay our bills in the wintertime at Venn. So it just tends to be this. For me, I need to be genuine. I need to be, consistent. Obviously, consistency is key. But really being who you are, not apologizing for it. On the food and beverage side, we purchase the best ingredients possible, the best wines possible, and showcase them in the right way, wine at the proper temperature, food done simply but in an elevated style, sophisticated, but being true to who you are, and then if you look at the kind of the marketability or the market as a whole, we're all going to fit our niche, and you're going to kind of be, for example, the critical mass comes in where historic Roswell. I know you're not going to come to Vin 25, every night or even every weekend. Right. But maybe if I can get you to come down to historic Roswell, on a regular basis, then I got a fair shot of at that point, having you come back. We're going to compete no matter what, but we compete more with our fellow restaurants around there for employees more than we do
for
eyeballs.
Customers.
Because I'm biased, but I think our product speaks for itself, and I'm confident that get you in the door, get you coming back, that we'll keep you.
Yeah. What I like about the way that you've done the restaurant too is it's both a combination of a place I could just go get a drink and an appetizer and go somewhere else if I wanted to, or I could stay and do the full fare. So you've got kind of both of those going for you, especially with the deck. And I mostly talk about Vin 25. We go to Alpharetta and we go to the restaurants there too, but that's it's like a little gem in my opinion.
Sure.
It's like this little, you got to know that it's there and fun place to hang out.
That was more so back in the day when we first opened. There wasn't really anything on that street back then.
Yeah, now you got a couple of things across. And,
and then that critical mass comes in where there's times when it kind of turns into a block party on our little side street, Plumtree Street. So we can participate in the local events, but it is truly local following. We'd be nothing without the local following.
Yeah, and so interesting. So I don't like to go and wait at restaurants. I'm always want to get a reservation. So there's Open Table and Resi and some of these others. And what's interesting about those is part of your marketing mix. I have gone onto Open Table or Resi, and you do the reservation, and then you get to the restaurant and it's not what you expected based on what you saw. So you have to think about that fully across, right? Like you guys have to consider what the marketing looks like from when the person first sees what they think they're going to experience to what actually happens when you get there.
For sure. We didn't even have a reservation system. Our reservation system for the first, I'm gonna say first 8 years probably was just a pen and paper.
Yeah.
At the front door. My wife was a host there for, on the weekends for, a long time.
Yeah.
So you'd come in, and part of that is there's 38 seats inside. Some of those are bar seats. You can never really rely on consistent weather, what people are going to get into. So, you come in, you put your name on the list, or we seat you, or whatever. So part of that was protecting that expectation. You can't make a reservation online, then you show up and now you're at a different table, or
right.
where you thought you were going to be, to your point. But out of necessity, we brought on a reservation system. We've gotten a little more sophisticated, but still at the end of the day, it's busy Saturday night. There's, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And some of that's part of the charm too. And, and also those, those other spots that are close to us, that's where the block party comes in.
Yeah.
Come in, put your name in, grab a glass of wine, go listen to music, hang out,
yeah.
and then we'll get you sat.
So it sounds like you say it's kind of in your bones, right? But I'm sure you have people who come to you, and I kind of got two questions. One is around the advice now don't just tell me you talk them out of it. So it's like, I've always wanted to do a restaurant. Like, what would be how would you know? Like, I sit across from people I know if they can, I have a sense that they could probably make it as an entrepreneur, not necessarily as a restaurant person, but like
Sure.
an entrepreneur. Are there some indications when you're talking with someone who's thinking about jumping off into the crazy world?
I would say perseverance, internal fortitude. It's going to be harder than you think. It's going to cost more money than you think. You're dealing with, in my business, obviously, it's different if you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're going B2B or, business to business. But, in the customer service space, that's really the key for me I was always good at the interaction, table interaction, things like that. The business part of it, I kind of learned along the way. Yeah. But so kind of felt like those things could be learned, whereas there was sort of this kind of innate ability to be able to communicate with people and have good hospitality and be genuine and be authentic, right. Really at the end of the day. So if you're doing something that you can't truly be authentic or can't be yourself, then it's not for you. But and the high pressure situations, those are a daily occurrence. Ideally those are just, we tend to get a little better, a little more fine-tuned and polished when those things happen. You can have a floor plan, you can have reservations, you can have a list of names, people coming in, you can have a plan certainly, but once the doors open, that plan tends to go out the window a little bit.
So was there a point when, I'm going to talk, because I do want to ask about the other locations, but in this kind of, starting it, and then was there a point at which you're like, this is going to work? Was it from the beginning, or was there?
Oh, no.
No.
I don't know, probably 3-4 years in, once we kind of had a consistent following, and I truly love it. I absolutely 100%. I'm living my dream. Sometimes sometimes my nightmare. But
what do you love about? What is it that you love?
I'm first and foremost the independence of having my own business and being able to kind of call my own shots. But there's also a downside to that, obviously, as well. But I just found a way to kind of be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, I guess, which I think is a trait of most entrepreneurs, where you just kind of get to where,
you're not doing it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's the luxury of, if you work for somebody, then you're going to be, given some autonomy, but you're going to be given some guidelines.
Yeah. Guardrails,
exactly. Yeah. But for us, it was just sort of trial and error. Make some mistakes, try and minimize the mistakes you make, try and minimize the capital contribution to things that may or may not work. But we always came back to consistency, quality, just everything was about the product and the here and the now, right now.
Yeah.
You have a bad service, hey, whatever. There's always tomorrow.
Yeah.
As long as as long as you stay true and you're genuine to it. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what the customer and the guest will pick up on.
Yeah.
They can see it.
So I've interviewed franchise people before, and so they talk about the need, like a franchise owner's, the rule that I've been told is you need to have 3 franchise locations in order to get enough, scale from it, that type of thing. Don't open 1, you got to open 3. They talk about the 3 years, whatever. So did any of that kind of thinking drive you into the other locations, or were you just crazy and said, I'm going to do 3 of them?
There's a little bit of crazy in there. Yeah. I have 3 kids, so I need 3 revenue streams.
Got it. Yeah. One for each kid. Yeah. College for each.
Right. At some point, I'm going to say probably maybe, very early on, a couple of years in, there was this thought of, yes, I can do this again. There is a formula. There, at the end of the day, all 3 of our concepts are very different, but at the end of the day, you're looking at, it's 8 lines on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
70% of my business in each one of the stores, on the business side of it, it's all kind of the same. It's food costs, it's labor costs, it's controllables, it's P&L management, things like that. So yes, there's value in scalability for sure when you're dealing with vendors and sort of costing out items and things like that. And then from a cultural standpoint, that was kind of where Cellared Roots Hospitality came into it. That was sort of an after we had Citizen going for about a year. We were looking at sort of how to standardize things a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of the beauty and the where a franchisee would come in and the benefit of kind of having this structure already. I know where to get my product. I know this, I know that. It's all kind of here. Here's your handbook, go. So we had to basically write that handbook and take it to, okay, well, now I've got, you go from what we would call an owner-operator to, okay, now I've got 2. Okay, now I got to be in 2 places at once. Okay, now I got 3. So we created the kind of the bones for Cellared Roots Hospitality with sort of the business side in mind, but ultimately it was just to standardize culture, standardize as many processes as possible.
So you could have consistent inconsistency.
Correct. Yeah, there you go. But you're trying to take the subjectivity out of as many things as possible.
Yeah.
There's so many hurdles and so many curveballs that come on a daily basis that as many things as we can standardize, we wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Because that was the only way to survive, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah. And what interesting is watching. I love restaurants. It's my thing. It's where we spend most of our money. That and travel. Food and travel.
Me too.
And so it's where all of our disposable income goes. Right. And have in the restaurant scene that we're in, it's very interesting to go into a restaurant that does very well at the beginning. What you guys have done a great job of doing is continuing to be consistent. And you can kind of tell when the restaurant owner either is just angry at the public, like there's one restaurant we won't talk about in Roswell, but there's one that has great food.
Sure.
But very angry management, Right. And so you only go because you're like, I'm going to go get the food, but I really don't want to go because they just don't like it anymore, right? I mean, that becomes such a deterrent, right, to being able to then be successful with it because people don't give the referrals and they don't, want that to be the standard place. How do you keep yourself out of that, that space? Because there's got to be times where the customers just are very annoying, right?
Yeah. In the restaurant business, we have a saying, the customer's always right, but rarely correct. And I apologize to anyone to take offense to that. But the cultural piece, like we said, that's huge because that sort of, you say anger management, that starts at the top and goes all the way down. Right,
100%.
And you can feel it.
It's the restaurant that starts putting all the signs of the things that they don't do and the way they do.
Sure. And we try and find ways to not say no.
Right.
I may not be able to do this special thing for you, but I'm going to do my best not to tell you no. We're going to find another avenue to do it. And I may not necessarily say yes either. But it's just, again, about being accommodating, being hospitable, being genuine, and treating your people right at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, if when I say point of sale, I'm not necessarily meaning the the point of sale, meaning the interaction between the customer and the server or management or whatever. But that interaction, I mean, that's where we live and die. I mean, that's you're ultimately gonna pay your tab at the end, and you're gonna if you have a great experience, you're going to tell 5 people. If you have a bad experience, you're going to tell 20. Bad news travels faster than good, for sure.
Yeah, that reframing is important, because if you're not going to say no, like giving people tricks to say something different.
Sure.
We have a similar model here. We don't tell our clients no, but we're in retainer model, so we say not yet. So what do you have to prioritize?
Sure.
So you've asked us to do a thing. I can tell you no, but I'm going to say, so what else do we not need to do? Which you don't necessarily have that same luxury, right? But that is one of our kind of tenets within the company is we'll get to it, but what's more important to you right now? What do you need to do?
Ultimately, we're trying to be accommodating.
Right. Yeah.
And oftentimes you're led down a path by a guest, especially when you're dealing with larger groups or private parties.
Right.
This is what I had envisioned in my head, and this is how we want to do it. Well, then you go,
the perfect birthday party.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
Then you go, well, functionality-wise, let me tell you why that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Let me tell you why that this is a better idea because of logistics generally or something like that. Or taking the other guest's point of view as well.
Yeah.
Everybody else that's in the restaurant that would have a negative experience, so you can have a positive one.
So in our last few minutes, like thinking about just things that you see that are, and I know you're talking about taking care of the customer, so you can't say that because you've said that. So something, if I were a person that's starting a restaurant and looking at it specifically in either a way to get the word out or that type of thing, is there anything you've seen work really well? Like, is it?
Most of our marketing has kind of been guerrilla. I mean, that's kind of a generic term, I guess, but obviously everybody's social media. Obviously everybody has to have a web presence. Industry-wide, I kind of see kind of a separation now between, your fast casuals and types of operations that are going to lend themselves more to, quick pickup, delivery, things like that. Those delivery models we've tried, not had very good success, but mainly from just a quality standpoint of just me being more apprehensive to do those because I'm trying to protect the product. Trend wise, I feel like just elevating the experience, because in my world, again, we've seen a decline in cover counts. Well, it's basically butts and seats. So how do we create an environment that's going to get you in the restaurant? Oftentimes it's, we'll offer things that you can't do. You like scallops, great. Come have some scallops. You want to try and make scallops at home, then that's a different scenario.
Yeah, there's certain things like that. Duck breast is one that I've never been able to figure out how to make at the house without burning the house down.
For sure. Yeah. Fresh made pasta at our Italian spot. So, there's things like that just being true to yourself, being consistent, and really, like I said before, you're not apologizing for what you're doing. This is what we are. I'm not going to try and do too much. I'm not going to try and attract too many guests just for the sake of having butts and seats.
Right.
It's this is our experience. We want you to be a part of the experience, and it's been successful to a large degree, just kind of organically, and word of mouth and that kind of communal thing starts to sort of spread. Ideally in a positive way.
Yeah, curating. It's hard. It's hard as an entrepreneur to make a choice.
Sure.
Because you're like, I want to do all of it. Because what if I exclude somebody? Well, you need to exclude some people. That's going to be
part of it.
Going to be a man thing. Well, Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been
Absolutely.
great. I feel like I'm the one getting the gift today because I got to talk to Leroy from this morning. I got to talk to you. You were my favorite brand. So anyway,
awesome. Thank you so much.
So we've been talking today with Phillip Cooper. He is with Cellared Roots Hospitality. They own one of my favorite restaurants in Roswell called Vin 25, which are in the Atlanta area. You should check that out. And then the others up in Alpharetta, which I don't know the names as well.
Citizen Soul and City Center in Alpharetta. Okay. And then Sorella Vicina is also in Alpharetta.
Yeah.
In the Hamilton Hotel.
Yes, Sorella Vicina is a beautiful restaurant.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Yes.
Sorella Vicina means sister nearby.
Oh, okay.
Sorella means sister, nearby Vicina, and that's a kind of an ode to my daughter Maddie. We call her Sis growing up, and also sister restaurant nearby. And then from a cuisine standpoint, it's Italian, but it's Mediterranean Italian. Oh. So, it's the sister countries around Italy as well, which also influence the menu.
Nice. So you've been listening to Made in Atlanta, which is a special podcast series brought to you by SmallBizClub. Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger. And until next time, thanks for tuning in.